Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to session number 2 of our 2020 VRMU. We are so excited to have you today. We're going to give everybody a few minutes to jump in. And just while we're doing that, we are going to do a few housekeeping items. So if you've participated in one of our webinars before, specifically VRM Insider, this will be a very similar format. We wanted to keep it very simple for everybody, something you're already familiar with. So that's the format we're going with. You are in, like I said, session 2 of VRMU 2020. This session is titled How to Focus on the Data That Will Propel Your Company. And we're looking at propelling you forward into 2021. Who's ready to go to 2021? I'm ready. I'm ready to, and we're getting close, you guys, so close. I think Scott said earlier, or who was it, said we have 52 more days in the year or something like that. I mean, it's winding down quickly. It'll be here before we know it. So amazing things ahead for our industry and for you in 2021. We're excited to hear today from LSI Tools, this really engaging educational webinar focused on just that, getting you into 2021, how to look at your data, where to look at data, and actually how to use it. It's so important. So you'll see a few other faces up in your screen if you've got your screen on where you can see the participants today. So the lovely lady in blue, that beautiful royal blue, that is Linnell Gordon. Linnell is the CEO of LSI, and we are delighted to have her today.
Thank you, Trey.
And her partner in crime is Mr. Scott Leggett, and Scott is the president of Data Analytics. So it is an honor to have them both with us today. They should be familiar faces to you. You've seen them before. They're amazing friends of ours. And I always particularly love when Scott is on a session with us, because Scott was a vacation rental manager for many years in the Outer Banks of North Carolina. So he knows the industry from every angle. And I just love it that he can speak your language. He can speak to you just from a really unique perspective that oftentimes we don't always get. So that's great. And then Michelle and Tammy from VRM are joining us as well, just in case there's any VRM specific questions along the way that they can help us answer those. So during today's presentation, if you have any questions, there's a Q&A button down at the bottom of your screen. It'll have 2 little speech bubbles. That's what we're going to want you to use to ask your questions. We will be monitoring that. If we're at a spot in the presentation where it's appropriate to ask those questions, we'll go ahead and ask them. If it's not a quite right fit, then we'll just save those questions for the very end. And if it's something that needs to be addressed offline, not a problem. We'll be happy to send you an email, whether it's from the VRM side or make a direct connection to LSI for you to answer any really specific questions. All right, so without any further ado, I do want to hand this over, but before I do, just a reminder, I am recording this session, so it will be available afterwards for you to rewatch or share with your team. And when we finish up today, I'll let you know about our last session for day 1 of VRMU and what you can expect coming up tomorrow. So Scott, Linnell, take it away.
Great, thanks so much. We're excited to be here. We're going to talk about data, which I find fascinating. I'm going to share my screen over here. And hopefully you can see how to focus on data. Scott, have I got the right screen up?
You absolutely do.
So if we ever wondered how important data was, Scott, think about what's happening now. Presidential data. Are data points important? I mean, just in the minutia of what we're happening right now.
Yes, I couldn't find my unmute, and the answer is yes, data is important.
So we're going to look at data that you need to look at in your company to propel you forward, to look into 2021. As Scott said, as Tracy introduced us, I'm Linnell Gordon, and this is Scott Leggett. Here are some email addresses if you want to reach out to us. feel free to afterward. We're very simple at our company. It's scott.leggett and linnell.gordon@lsitools.com. So here we are. Let's get into the meat of it. All right, Scott. We're going to talk about what data sets we need to use and where the data comes from. Can you talk a little bit about the different ones that we've got going down here?
Sure. There's a lot of data sets available to property managers in the vacation rental industry. In fact, some of them, in some ways, are too many, believe it or not. So we have the data that you can get from OTAs. VRMA puts out data. You have local and state tax reports. There's for-profit data aggregation from companies such as LSI and Key Data, Transparent.
Okay, so lots of places to get data. And is all the data equal?
No, data is not equal at all.
I mean, all those polls we saw that didn't come true, that means unequal data, right?
Yeah.
So unequal data, tell me why the data is not equal for real.
Well, it all comes down to the source and the process of gathering the data. So if you don't have a trusted source, and there's kind of a hierarchy of sources. The best source that you can ever get data from is directly through the database within a company's PMS system, the reservation database. Then there's data that can be sourced from the web, and that's a process typically called scraping, which is good for giving broad strokes and trends, but really it can't be trusted for very specific information.
Okay, so those are different types of data. The best and most powerful is what's coming out of your PMS, of course, and we're looking at that. So you had said some things earlier, you had put some things together in the slides, and I have to tell you, these are great. I'm going to let you read them out because they're fun to read, but the last one is my favorite.
Yeah, so these are just a couple quotes about data, and people who know me know I'm a bit of a data geek. So without big data, you are blind and deaf and in the middle of a freeway. Edwards Deming says, "In God we trust, all others bring data." And that's kind of the way I feel. And as Linnell says, a favorite, if we have data, let's look at data. If all we have is opinions, let's go with mine. So for the purposes of this webinar, we're going to go with my opinions.
So we talk a lot about database decisions. So let's look at the questions you put here out for us to ask. These are questions that Scott put together for us to think about today. And the first is, am I making decisions based on my gut, based on what I think, or is it based on fact? Am I operating as efficiently as possible? Where can I save time and money? And do we always have to do things the way we do them because it's the way we always have done it? So Scott, you have been in property management for a long time. I'm going to ask you to recount a story that you told me about data and about someone's gut reaction. You were managing a company and you had a property manager underneath you who wanted to get rid of one of the performers. Can you tell me a little bit about what happened there? Because I love this story.
So we actually had a reservation manager, and we had a reservationist there that just got under her skin. She never followed the scripts that the company had put out. She had a very, very deep accent and used colloquialisms and just overly familiar with people on the phone, and it just ground on her manager. And so she came to me any number of times and says, I think we need to put so-and-so on probation. She's not following the script. She's not doing it in the order that we think things should go.
I mean, Doug Kennedy's lesson did not rub off on her.
It did not.
What is up with that?
Yeah, so no matter what you said, it wasn't going to change. But then I said, well, before we get rid of her, let's take a look at her performance. So we went into and looked at the data, and surprisingly enough, that individual, and we've changed the names here to protect the innocent. We've got the Three Stooges here, Curly Moe, Larry, and if you look at the highlighted Larry, that was the reservationist. And it turned out that she far and away converted more people than any other reservationist. Even though she never followed the script, she never followed the order, there was something about her personality that resonated with the people on the other end of the line, and they booked more through her than, and actually, as we started looking deeper, always asked for her when they rebooked. And so, and if we had have followed the manager's instincts to say, hey, these are the rules, she's not following the rules, we're going to get rid of her, we would have lost our best reservationist. And in that case, she literally took double the revenue of the next best performer.
So this is a report that it's an actual report that we've pulled from some data that we had. This is literally a company's data. So this is real data. You guys, this data is available in different places. You probably have a way that you can pull it yourself. But if not, this agent performance is a real good way to find out how your people are performing. So let's talk about things that affect our operations. That's just what we did. That staffing report we looked at.
Quick question, Linnell and Scott, just because I thought of it, so maybe one of the other property managers may have thought of this too, but would you say that it's just good HR practices and kind of best practices to look at, some kind of agent performances on a monthly, quarterly, annual basis? Because obviously in the example you just gave, if like Scott said, if you just operating on the opinion or kind of the bias of one person and the interactions of two different, personalities, that would have been a detriment to this particular company. So the data doesn't lie, right? So what is, as far as data and your HR, what would be some of those best practices?
Yeah, so I'll take that one. I look at reservation data daily. Honestly, it's the first thing that I look at on a daily basis. I want to know how we're doing today over yesterday, how we're doing measuring against our goals and the pace that we need to be at to meet our goals. I want to see who's performing well. And what I have found is the more you look at that data and the more you distribute and share it with everybody else, everybody is attuned to those metrics and they buy into them. They're looking and they're measuring against themselves against one another. They're measuring themselves against their past performance. And it's not an antagonistic thing at all. In fact, it's a fun thing. And so I would say you look at that as frequently as you possibly can. And I think we're going to show a report here a little.
Yeah, I've got it next. I just moved it up. It's a great question. We've got a report that I'm gonna throw over to Scott just a second. The next screen, we're talking about streamlining ops. We're talking about what you should do every day, what challenges and what kind of things can they help to solve the problems they have. Here's a report. This is an actual report that we pulled this morning from a company that uses a benchmarking report. And this benchmarking report is set up to where these are inspectors and housekeepers right here. So we're not just looking at agent reports that are taking reservations. We're looking at how our field staff are operating to make decisions based on data, not based on gut. And so what we're looking at here, Scott, do you want to talk to about that?
Yeah, so what we did was we helped this particular company do a time cost analysis of their cleaning and inspection process. And
well, we created a product that includes that in there. So this is live data you go to anytime you want to see it. So it's not just a report that's static.
So what it does is that it takes historical data and calculates what the anticipated cleaning time for each home in their inventory should be. And then it ties in with their housekeeping, scheduling, and status tracking. And we know whether someone, and they know whether someone is cleaning at the pace they should be, so that they've scheduled them the right number of properties, or whether there's an issue or a problem.
Or at the end of the day, if they're not quite at, they think they're not going to make their cleans by the time that they're supposed to, like 4 p.m., it'll show up. So I'm going to explain the colors here. Okay. So what we've got, this benchmark column says for this house, on a general basis, it should take 3 hours to clean this house. In actuality, this group cleaned the house in 1 hour and 12 minutes. The same thing here. So with its yellow, it's within the time periods they gave. So they said
within the range.
Right. They have a range that they have. So it can be outside or inside of this range. But as you get down here, it depends on the house. If they're not gonna make it, it's gonna tell them. Let me come back a little bit, Scott, and come over here. So there's a cleaning time warning right here. They're 42 minutes over what the average clean time is. So.
And so somebody, a housekeeping manager who's keeping track of where everybody is and the pace they're going, might look at that and say, look, they've got a big house coming up after this that's going to take them 3 hours to do, and it's already 4 o'clock. There's no way that we're going to get the guest in there on time.
Send people out to help.
They're able to make those adjustments there based on that. They also make a lot of personnel decisions. If they hire a new cleaner and they know how long a house should take, and especially if they're paying them hourly and someone's consistently behind what the historical data shows that it should be able to be cleaned in, then they know whether that person is going to make it, or, you know, is someone that they should retain, or someone that they should, you know, find something else for.
So in this particular case, you can see here in the middle for this house, actual time was 6 hours and 11 minutes for a 2-hour clean. So there are personnel decisions for time cost analysis here. This particular report lets you know whether the guest has been SMS'd to let them know the house is ready and all types of things. But for benchmarking, that's what this is now.
Linnell, and it also alerts them to in that example you just used where they had 6 hours in a 2-hour house, it alerts them that there's something unusual that must have occurred in that house, that it was left in terrible condition. They know that they need to pay particular attention to that, whether there's a security deposit hold or some other factor like that.
That's right. Or if there's an early check-in related to that house, or a late checkout. Those are also really important things here to make sure that your guests are happy, because that's our job, is to make sure guests are happy. Now, Scott, we're going to move on to another report. I'm looking at our time. Okay. So the next report you want to talk about is the first one that you spoke about. I'm going a little backwards here because we wanted to move into this, but let's talk about data that actually drives your business.
Great. Well, this really directly relates to Tracy's question about how often you should look at your data. And this report is a report that we provide for people that falls into the management's email inboxes every single morning. And it allows them to know how their bookings are going today, how that compares to yesterday. And this is all in real time. So when someone's looking at this, if they were looking at this early in the morning, they might only have 2 bookings, but as the day progresses, it would update all of that. And so they can compare that to yesterday. They look at the number of cancellations they've had, and then they can compare it to year over year. And then it reports it week by week, month by month, quarter by quarter. And it shows all the associated revenue with it, the rent, the taxes, the goods, and the commissions earned on that. And what's really important about that is, you know, when you look at data, you can sort it into two buckets. There's leading indicators and there's lagging indicators. And most of the time, the reports that property managers use are lagging indicators. When they get their month-end P&L, they're at the you know, they're 30 to 45 days behind because things have already occurred. What the most valuable metrics that you can look at are ones that are happening in real time. So when you look at this, you're seeing in real time what is going on with your company. You don't have to wait till the end of the month for a P&L or balance sheet to see how you're doing. This tells you what your revenue is, what your pace is, how it's looking year over year, how many bookings you have. And it literally takes 5 minutes to glance at every morning. And as a property manager, you'll know how your business is doing.
So my question to you is this, and I just want to make a point. This is a report we built, but the reason we're showing you is that the companies that we work with created this report themselves. This is a report they pulled from their data. Is it hard to pull this data? Yeah. Can you pull it without any, expensive reporting? Yes, you can. You can pull this data. You could create an Excel spreadsheet that would show you this same information, and you could have somebody on your staff to fill it out. I'm just saying that people do that. I know it's time consuming, but like Scott says, we're looking preemptively at our business and fixing issues that we may see, as opposed to waiting until we get our P&L at the end of the month. So this report, so if you guys are listening to this is recorded. We're going to send you the spreadsheets. I mean, not the spreadsheets. I took them out of spreadsheets, actually put them in the PowerPoint. We're going to have the PowerPoint available to VRM, and you could take a look at this and you could create it yourself if you don't want to use a data supplier to do it. Is there anything else you want to hear, Scott, before I move?
No, we're good, I think.
All right. So we're going to talk about some regional specific data. So what kind of data is important for regional specific data, Scott? What kind of data are we talking about here when we say regional data?
So there's a lot of metrics you might want to look at. You want to see how your pricing compares to your competitors. You want to see how your performance is comparing to your competitors. You want to see how your booking pace compares, but you also may want to see what you're missing that they're getting. And I think we have a report here, Linnell. It may be the one that's following with the zip code information.
Yeah, I'll get the zip code one up. All right, so there's our zip codes. So what are we looking at here with zip codes, and why are we looking at zip codes?
So what we're looking at here is where the people came from who booked your properties. And we've sorted this to a specific group of homes. I think it was 3-bedroom soundfront homes in the summer season. And we looked at where the reservations were coming from, and then we organized those by zip code for marketing purposes. And you can see on the left-hand columns there, that's your company. The right-hand column is comparing where the rest of the local market is getting theirs from. And Linnell has circled something there, number 8. So you see the local markets ranked number 8 zip code was from Concord, North Carolina. And that was number 54 for the company that we pulled this data from. We've anonymized it here. So generally marketers' instincts are to repeat where they've had success. So they would be looking at where they were ranked the locations, the zip codes, they might be ranked number 1, 2, 3 through 10. But you look right here, what I think you should do is look at it from a counterintuitive perspective and say, where is the local market outperforming me? And here you see where Linnell circled number 8 here, that's number 54 for you. There's some reservations to be taken from. There's 113 that occurred in the local market there, where there were 25. So there's a lot more capacity there. And there's ways to get at those people in your marketing initiatives, specifically email campaigning, and
Facebook campaigning, social media of all kinds.
Social media, yeah, where you can really target by zip code, and you're paying pennies per impression instead of paying big dollars for pay-per-click.
Okie dokie. All right. You guys, if you have questions about these, please stop us. We're not trying to run through a bunch of things that you don't understand.
And I would imagine these, analyzing your data by a zip code source becomes extremely important, especially in situations like we've been in the last few months, especially since, March, April timeframe, where we've seen a slight change in where reservations are coming from, meaning it seems to be that, people are traveling a little bit closer to home. They're not taking as long of trips as far as, geographically, staying in state so they don't have to quarantine when they come back from out of state, things like that. So I would assume that reports of this nature become a really important key piece of data to look at when you're looking at who do I need to be targeting, and especially as things shift and change in the marketplace.
And Tracy,
Exactly.
that's a really great observation. We worked with several companies, and what we did was we looked at their zip codes with them, and we cross-referenced them to school closing policies. Who was doing virtual learning? Who was doing in place at school learning? And then they were able to target those that specifically at the beginning of the restrictions that were the first to adopt virtual learning, and it was a very, very effective strategy for them.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We love working with our clients. We love working with all clients. For anybody that's interested, we work with to help them look at their data and to understand what's happening with that. So I agree with you. Things changed significantly this year. It's really blown everything off the axis, as you guys know from the data that from our other sessions that we've done. So Scott, we want to talk about, let's talk about regional specific data for marketing. We're still there. We want to talk about pricing. So
Sure.
let's pull let's come back and do some of the reports that you put together for us for pricing. So you're talking about pricing and segmentation, matching guests. Tell me what we're looking at here and what you're thinking about.
Okay. So pricing obviously is one of the biggest motivators for someone to choose you or choose one of your properties over another one. But I think the principle that you always need to understand and keep into perspective when you're looking at data is that you can never look at a single metric and come to a conclusion. And when it comes to segmentation, you may have one segment of your properties that are performing exceptionally well and another segment that's not. You might have a segment that's overpriced, a segment that's underpriced, a segment that isn't meeting its predictable booking windows. And there's relationships to this. So if we look at this first one here, and this again, as Linnell's mentioned, we're using real data, we're anonymizing it, so we're not disclosing anybody's information. But you can see this company that we're using for the demo purposes is way above the rest of their market.
Now this is next summer, right? We're looking at next summer pre-reservations.
We're looking at this past summer, actually 2020, I think.
Oh yeah, okay, there we go.
So they were out at the time that this snapshot was taken, they were significantly outperforming the rest of the local market by almost 50 or well, over 15 percentage points. So you say, wow, they're doing great. But then if we were to take a look and say, okay, well, let's see what they were yielding per individual property there, it might be a different picture. And in this case, you can see it is. Obviously, we've selected the slides to prove the point, but you can see that they were underpriced. So while they might be outperforming, they were leaving money on the table for each in every reservation. So if they were looking at this from a strategic perspective, they might say, well, hey, we think by slightly underpricing ourselves against our competitors, we're at an advantage, and we can beat off the rest of the market in paid occupancy. But there's still room here. There's still cushion. They could still probably adjust their prices upwards of almost $100, still be under the market, still lead in paid occupancy, but netting more revenue for the owners and themselves.
Okay, so you're saying don't pay attention to a single point of data. It can be misleading. Pricing is very important, and segmenting your inventory is really significant to helping you. And what Scott said, we matched the slides to the specific topic point. We did, but we had to go through and look at different segments of their market to see, in this particular case where the demo is coming from, where they're actually underperforming. Because if you went to oceanfront 5 and 6 bedroom homes here, they're doing great. So the segmentation to find out where your issue is and to make sure you have an issue is important.
The metaphor that I use for it is it's like owning a Ferrari. You know, a Ferrari is going to drive fast right off the showroom floor, but for a vehicle like that to perform at peak performance, you have to be tweaking every little aspect of it. You have to be under the hood, looking at that thing every day. And so the same thing is true with running a vacation rental company. If you want to run at peak efficiency, you have to be looking at every little element. And the most important part of that process is segmenting your inventory accurately so that you're not making false conclusions about performance, and you might be losing one of your best properties because the whole picture looks good, but you're not looking at the segmented or individual pictures.
You know what it reminded me of? You ever seen like these like 2D drawings or that are like optical illusions? Like you look at one way and it looks like a cylinder, but if you look at it from straight on from up top, it's just a circle. You know, like you have to look at it from different angles is what I'm hearing you say. It's not just a single point of reference. You have to, if you don't look at it from multiple angles and multiple sides, it could be very misleading. And that maybe everybody already knows that. For me, I'm a little like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. So
Tracy,
I love that. That's so valuable what you guys just presented.
I think, Tracy, you're actually spot on. I think people tend to generalize rather than to drill down. You know, the methodology that people used just a few years ago and still use is they get on their competitors' websites and they look at how many homes are available and they calculate the percentage and they compare against that. It's really, really misleading. Number one, they don't know how many owner bookings or maintenance blocks or anything else there might be, but their inventory doesn't compare one-to-one against the other inventory. They may have more condos where the others might have more single family. And so unless you can really drill down, you're almost getting into dangerous territory when you look at data, because you're more likely to come up with a wrong conclusion.
One of our data products started for that very reason. We had a property manager who was literally screen scraping data. Well, at the time we were all screen scraping data. I'm not faulting him for that. I'm not at all. We were actually running spiders for him. And he would have these huge long charts, Scott, and they'd have 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, 3 bedroom, 4 bedroom, all across the island where they were, and the pricing all across the year, and which ones were filled and which ones were open. And I think back, because that's been probably 15 years, and I want to get in touch with his name was John Whalen, and he was an amazing property manager. I just wonder what he'd think today that he could get that data at the click of a button, guys. I mean, data is not hidden anymore. At this point, you can have whatever data basically that you want about your inventory for sure, and a great deal to know about your local market. So do you want to take any questions, or do you want to?
I think we've got more if you want to present, to cover more.
We do have more if you guys want to go. You want to look at a little more? We're happy to do that.
I have a question while you're transitioning your slides. What do you say to the property manager that just heard what you just said and scratching their head a little bit and thinking, oh man, now I got to become a data expert too? Like, nobody's got time for that. Yeah. I would imagine you guys have resources and help articles or something, or I don't know, one-on-one training that you can offer to help people navigate through kind of like, okay, this is, if you can only learn 3 things, learn these 3 things. You don't have to learn everything overnight.
That's right.
And whether somebody was talking to LSI or talking data with somebody else, I would, what would you say to that person that's like starting to get overwhelmed hearing that, oh, I need to look at it from every angle and every side?
Tracy, the first place I would start someone with that's a VRM client is that VRM marketplace. It's free to them, and it provides a wealth of data there that's pretty intuitive. And honestly, if someone would spend one single hour just playing around and navigating in there, that would be just an eye-opening experience for them to see what they could see and find in there.
I've been really impressed with VRM and where they're going. I mean, the new things that you guys have put forward and the partnerships that you've made, I mean, they're extraordinary. You've made free resources to your clients and partners, and I'm just like, wow, that's really impressive. So I applaud you on that. And I will say that Scott is the president of the data analytics portion of LSI, and he does a lot of consulting. We have a lot of companies that depend upon him and talk to him to help them make decisions and help them to wade through data. So there's consulting available one-on-one. I would suggest personally, if it were me and I didn't know a lot about data, I would give somebody like Scott a call and I would say, hey, give me an hour of your time and help me wade through what I've got. Do you have data in my area? Do you have data that will be, important, especially with your clients? Because there's a lot of things that we do have that are free to your clients. We'd be happy to help them in any way. So that would be my suggestion. All right, I'm going to look at the next portion that you wanted to talk about, Scott, was getting in front of the right guest at the right time. What do you mean by that?
Right. So one of the most important metrics that I look at is booking window. How far out is a property booked before the guest arrives? And it goes back to segmentation, because every sector, every part of your inventory will have a different predictable booking window. And so I look at what those booking windows should be. If you have a 6-bedroom oceanfront home with a swimming pool, it's going to have a different predictable booking window than a 2-bedroom condo, simply because there's something I call the planning window that the guest has to make a decision. They have to plan further out for one than the other. A 2-bedroom can be a last minute impulse buy. So you have different strategies you're going to do. So the first thing you do is you segment your inventory, look at what the predictable booking window is, and then you look at any exceptions. What homes are not booked within what the predictable booking window should be. And then the screen Linnell's just brought up there for you is as a way to match your open inventory with past guests. And one thing that, if you don't walk away from this presentation with anything else, I want you to understand that you have more information in your PMS system, in your VRM database, about your guests. You should know as much about them, almost as much as Amazon does about their clients. You know how much they spend on their vacation, whether they bring a pet with them, how far they've driven to get there because you have their home address and zip code, what their average spend on vacation is, what their favorite amenities are, how far out they plan and book. You know so much about them, and you can take that information and sort through that within VRM and match those guests' previous buying behavior and buying profiles with your open inventory. And it truly is the most effective marketing that you can do, because you don't have to convert those people again. You've already sold to them once. They already have a relationship with you. They're already familiar with your area. It's not they don't have to decide whether they want to come there or not. You're really preaching to the choir when you're marketing to that group of people.
Because they like you. They
They
came in
like
this
you.
meeting and they
You
like
have a
you. They like your
relationship
area.
with them.
You need that.
And I know we're getting near the end of our time. So what I would tell you is I think there's 3 different methods that are effective reaching them. The first is e-campaigning, very specific targeted e-campaigning to them. The third is outbound calling, and the second is outbound calling. You know, those guests actually want to hear from you. It's sometimes difficult to get your reservationists to do outbound calling, but once they've done it a single evening, they'll find out how easy it is and how welcoming those people are and how much they enjoyed their experience and would love to hear from you. And then the third is social media, which really helps you target similar people to the people who have already booked your homes.
Okay, well, Scott, thank you very much for answering my questions and helping us to walk through the data that actually matters. You guys, this is our website if you want to take a look. Again, you can also reach us at our email addresses if you really do want some help. We are very interested in helping anybody that wants to, simply because it's what we love to do. We are data geeks, and we love to help people sort through their data and to see where holes are and to find places that we can help increase business. But you guys have that data at your fingertips, and you can do that yourselves. So, but if we could be of any help, let us know. So guys, thanks for having us. Do you have any questions for us now, or do you want, who's up? Is it?
We can post those email addresses too on a final screen there too. If anybody wants to reach us individually, we're happy to field any questions that way.
All right.
Fantastic. So Tammy, Michelle, do you have anything that you guys would like to add to this conversation before we close this session?
I don't at this time. I just want to thank Scott and Linnell. Always great information, always so willing to pitch in and help us out, help our clients out. We are so grateful for the partnership that we have and the friendship that we have with both of you individually as well as your company. It's very valued. So thank you so much.
Thank you. It's our pleasure. Our pleasure, guys.
I don't see Michelle saying, Michelle, are you good?
Yep, I'm good. Thank you, guys. That was wonderful. Appreciate it.
Yes.
Thank you.
Good luck with your university, guys. I know that you got a lot of good stuff coming.
We do. In fact, we have another session today at 2:00 with Rental Guardian, who's great friends of all of ours sitting right here. So John Slaughter will be here with us to talk about how to deploy your defenses with damage, personal liability, and cancellation protection. Boy, if it's a year to talk about that, it's been this year, especially with all the unknowns coming our way and just the unpredictability of what's ahead, which so easily ties into the conversation about data and any kind of insurance or protection. And then tomorrow we have a full day packed out, as well as Thursday. Those sessions are at 10, 12, and 2 p.m. All of those days. So we will be sending out, I'll start my camera so you can see me. I'll be sending out another invite tomorrow morning that'll come in an email, and it'll tell you the exact 3 sessions that are tomorrow morning. And then I'll send out another one on Thursday morning, the same. That way, if you didn't register for everything and you've got a time slot open. But again, Scott, Linnell, thank you so much for joining us today, taking your time. And we know you guys are super busy. And just sharing your expertise with us. VRM clients, if you have questions about your data, you need to talk to the folks at LSI, because they are the local social experts. That's what they do. Isn't that what LSI stands for? It's Local Social Inc. Local Social Inc. So they know their stuff backwards and forwards and every which way. So if you're looking to just increase your data game, they're the ones to talk to. Rewatch this webinar. and see what else you can glean from it. I think it's worth a rewatch for sure. A lot of great information, a lot of golden nuggets packed in there. All right, you guys. So until 2 p.m., we will see you soon. Take care, everybody.
Thanks.
Thank you.